I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello Horror Hounds, welcome to my horror house. Recently and for the first time I got round to watching Night of the Demons. It's one of those 80s movies where the poster was all over the place. I'm really super familiar with the iconography of the movie, but I just never got round to watching it. I must admit that in later years I kind of gave it a pass because of Angela's look on the poster. I just assumed it was a sort of cheap American rip-off of Lamberto Bava's Demons. And now that I've seen that, that's still partly my response to the movie. It's a little more nuanced than that. I mean, the short version is that Night of the Demons is a rip-off of Lamberto Bava's Demons and Sam Raimi's Evil Dead. It involves a girl called Angela who is arranging a Halloween party at an abandoned crematorium called Hull House. And Hull House is purported to be possessed, not haunted, but possessed. A little touch that I love. And Night of the Demons is filled with little touches that just made me think that if the people behind it had just went just that little bit extra rather than perhaps trying to cash in on a trend, we could have had something really special. I do also acknowledge, though, that Night of the Demons is exactly the kind of film that if you caught it at the right age and at the right time, it would have made an enormous impression on you. And I can completely understand how you would have an abiding love for this movie. Unfortunately, I've come to it at 40, and I'm old, jaded and cynical, and I can see an almost home run, something that had all the elements but was just content to maybe sit back on its laurels, not push for that extra gear, and was just content to be okay. Now, history has proved me wrong because it was an enormously successful movie when it was released, made tons of money compared to the fairly small budget that it was made on. So I'm sure absolutely no one involved in the project is now, these decades later, going, oh no, Grumpy Andrew's completely skewering us on YouTube. They'll be swimming in their pools of money like Scrooge McDuck, although it's probably all spent by now. Best not to think about it. The opening synth score is so 80s, and the animated opening credits make it so much fun and really tie it into Halloween. The last film I reviewed was Tales of Halloween, and I must admit, about 30 seconds into this movie, I dug it so much more as a Halloween movie than I did the entirety of Tales of Halloween. I'm not sure how and why she chose the people she did to invite. Angela has one friend played by Liana Quigley, and all the other sort of pockets of friends that she invites to Hull House don't like her. She doesn't like them. They barely like each other. And she says towards the start of the movie that her plan is to scare the hell out of them, and nothing ever comes of that. And this is one prime example of where I think the film becomes lazy. Let's have a Halloween party in a house that's supposed to be possessed by demons, and we're going to invite a whole load of people that I personally hate at high school who make my life a misery, and I'm going to scare them to death. Does she think the demons are real and that they're going to get these people, or has she set something up to scare them and then an extra layer on top of that? Guess what? The local legends are true and there are demons here and people start getting possessed. It's never really made clear. Taking, though, its cue from Demons and Evil Dead, once the possessions start, they are pretty great. They are that 80s OTT kind of prosthetic possession. When Angela gets possessed, she does this awesome dance that I understand the actress choreographed herself, which just speaks to me of this entity getting used to its physical form and how it moves and how they can puppet it. Angela's possession towards the start especially is very much in the big hair, 2 cans of hairspray, Dana Zool type possession that we get in Ghostbusters, and later on gets into more familiar Lamberto Bava demons area. She's floating a foot, 2 feet off the ground through the corridors, and that looks so cool. That footage, as well as the sort of first person footage of the demon escaping from the crematorium ovens and going up through the house, completely ripped off from Evil Dead, by the way. Those 2 shots are so cool that they're both stolen and used exactly as they are again in the 2 sequels. Leanna Quigley plays her friend, as I mentioned, and genre favourite Leanna Quigley is as Leanna Quigley does. It's exactly what you would expect. She shows it all. She's there to dare to bear, and she does. She fulfills her unique selling points. And you can see why she became a horror icon in her own right. Yeah, she gets her kit off all the time. And if you're a pubescent kid who's into horror movies, and that's probably your first foray into a little bit of the old naked flesh, a little bit of the boobage, she's certainly going to make an impression on you. I can see again why a certain generation or generations of horror fans adore her. She's not just there to get her kit off. I will say the camera does love her. She does have a presence and a charisma. When her character gets possessed, she plays it very strange and off kilter, almost a little bit like she's got a fractured psyche and there's some sort of psychological trauma that's happened through this act of possession. I really like it. It's a little bit sing-songy, childish in the way that some of the possessions in Sam Raimi's Evil Dead are, but this movie just borrows wholesale and is blatant about it, and that's fine. Leanna Quigley's character is involved in the most WTF moment of the film, where she's playing around with a stick of lipstick and does something with it that I was just absolutely not expecting. And again, just this little jewel of a moment, this little jewel of an idea that made me think, if they had the courage of their convictions and leaned into that weirdness even more, that bizarre originality that flashes through in brief moments in this film, we could have had something really special. But after that sort of, what the hell was that? Again, we lean back into just following little groups of people wandering around the house. It does, however, highlight that the practical effects in this movie are great, as you would expect from an 80s horror movie with a fairly decent sized budget, I guess. I loved the practicality. The pacing was all over the place though, so getting from one bit of special effects to the next just seemed, it seemed as if someone was driving a car with 1 foot on the accelerator and 1 foot on the brake the whole time. And if you're going to allude to Evil Dead so much like this movie does, you're minded that Sam Raimi kept a small number of people inside a tiny cabin and told a feature-length story that had twists, turns, drama, tension, and an arc building to a conclusion. Whereas Hull House is probably about 5 times bigger than that cabin, at least. More, 10 times. And it just descends into a succession of people wandering round, coming across a demon, running away, getting their breath in a different room, wandering around again, or being in a room and a demon turns up and kills them or / gets them possessed. And there's no sense of where anything is in relation to anything else. There's no sense of any progression. Everything just walks on spot, just jogs on the spot. Right, we're going to have a whole swathe of this movie that's just people wandering around and then coming into contact with the possessed and either getting possessed themselves or killed or running away. And we're just going to spin those wheels for a while until we get to the end. None of the characters are particularly likeable. They're all caricatures. Some of them are so obnoxious that you will be desperate for them to be offed. One of the really interesting things that Night of the Demons does is it kills off people or gets them possessed who you would lay money would be surviving till the final reel. And some of the people that you really want to die are the final reel survivors. And it gives you a chance, weirdly, to get to know these characters that you've written off and start to empathise with them towards the end. Oh, okay, yeah, he was an asshole. He still is an asshole, but he's not 100% an asshole. And by now, the 70-minute mark, I kind of like him or her to survive, thank you very much. It's not something you see done often, and it was a really interesting take on a fairly tired slasher formula. It's quite clear that I do not wholly endorse Night of the Demons, but it's also clear while I'm talking about it that there are enough bright spots that I may well return to it. In fact, it's probably likely. I'll probably leave it a couple of years and then return to it. And who knows, I'll probably like it even more on subsequent watches. I might forgive the pacing and some of the laziness more if the bright spots still hit home. I mean, there's a section towards the end of trying to climb up a wall using a piece of barbed wire as a rope, which is fantastic. So maybe I'm being slightly too harsh on it because I'm name checking all these moments that I think are great, but they did seem to be moments, islands of greatness in the film, which was mostly not at that level. Let me watch it again in a couple of years' time. Let me make up my mind upon a rewatch. It's excellent fun, but unfortunately, if you come to it late like me and you've seen a ton of other 80s stuff, it's not top level. Evil Dead is top level. Lamberto Bava's Demons is absolutely top level. If you want to see what you can do in a small environment with lots of people trapped with demons, if you just want to see that go, Technicolor up to 11, Gonzo, stick with demons. Night of the Demons, though, I could return to that next Halloween. It's a really good Halloween themed movie. It's got a nice little bit that tops and tails it, which brings you back round to the Halloween feels, which feel completely out of place, but at the same time absolutely perfect for this movie. I wish it had the courage of its convictions and had a little bit more nutso about it, but there you go. I might, as I say, be being slightly too harsh. Do you love Night of the Demons? Do you love Liana Quigley? Let me know what you think. Am I being a little bit too harsh, or yeah, you're about right. It's not top tier. It's sort of a second tier 80s movie.